Good afternoon, Excellencies and distinguished guests and friends. Thank you for joining us today in our forum to discuss the future of ports and their relationship with cities, and to witness in a short while the launch of this a joint publication by the MPA and the CLC on the port and the city, balancing growth and livability. I think we are very honored today that we have the mayors of Antwerp and the deputy mayor of Yokohama to join us so that we can learn from each other and exchange best practices. I know the mayor of Rotterdam is somewhere around. He's not able to join us, but I think we have a representative from the Netherlands embassy here with us today too. I think the ports of Antwerp, Yokohama, and Singapore shares many similarities. Apart from being the gateways to our respective regions, I think we have made the most of the spaces that we have, and we continue to invest heavily in infrastructure and manpower. I think beyond building port infrastructure to support our respective countries' economic goals, it has become increasingly important for us to answer the question of how we grew and how we got to where we are. I've had the good fortune of being at the helm of the Port of Singapore Authority for a little while, between 1996 and 2002, and also the Urban Redevelopment Authority. So I've seen how Singapore has come a long way in our maritime journey and in our urban journey, from being a small fishing village to one of the busiest transshipment hubs, and also a very livable metropolis in this part of the world. So we started in 1969. The modern port started in 1969. The old port started in 1819. 1969, we built our first container terminal at Tanjong Pagar. And this was well before containerization had taken off in a big way. And at that time, I think Japan, probably Yokohama, was the only other Asian country with a container terminal. So it was a decision, probably a far-sighted decision in our days, in those days, given our very limited resources, including money, to kind of take a leap and invest in a container terminal. I think I was told that the World Bank, refused to finance our investment in a container terminal because they thought we were not ready for containerization. I think one of the first executive directors, as was then known, of the Port of Singapore Authority, Mr. Wong Hang Kim, he's here with us today, and I think he probably can, I hope you have time later, Mr. Wong, to share your story about how we built a container terminal and what troubles you had to try and get the money. Maybe Mr. Wong can stand up so that everybody can see you. One of our pioneers of the Singapore port. So given how different cities balance their growth, even as they preserve the environment, as part of the city's development strategies, we are lucky to have with us a gathering of leaders to shed light on how other cities make their decisions. I think that there's kind of a very tight relationship between ports and cities, because most cities grew up because they started off as a port, as Singapore did, and I suppose as Yokohama and Antwerp did. But as the port became more and more successful, very often, and the city grew, very often the port imposed kind of environmental problems on the city. So we grew in the Singapore River, and as the trade along Singapore River and the bumboats along Singapore River got more and more, the Singapore River got more and more polluted. So the city was a really polluted city. The river was very polluted in the early 60s and 70s. And that's why with containerization, we were able to move the lighters from Singapore River to the new container terminals. And that created the opportunity for us to be able to clean up the Singapore River and renew the city in the Singapore River, right? Today, I think we've got Tanjong Pagar Keppel, Brani, and Pasir Panjang. And I think we're going to see a next stage of transformation because these terminals are now, at least the 3 terminals, Brani, Keppel, and Tanjong Pagar, are right now in the heart of the new city because the city has expanded. And if you look out, even from here, you can see all the container cranes. And some of you may probably be wondering, why are these container cranes right in the heart of the city? And in fact, in the urban planning, all the container terminals will gradually move starting from 2025, right? Andrew, I'm correct, I think, or thereabouts, to the western part of Singapore in Tuas. And by 2040, I think they will eventually move. And that gives another great opportunity for our urban planners. They call it the Great Southern Waterfront. So they are already anticipating the day when PSA moves and all that waterfront that is left behind when PSA moves becomes a tremendous opportunity for us for urban renewal and urban development. And I think we will hear similar stories, I think, in other cities like Antwerp and Yokohama. I think I visited Yokohama and I'm very inspired by the Minato Murai 21 project. In fact, when we were looking at Minato Murai and looking at the common service tunnel for the utilities, we were very inspired. We were taken for a tour. So when we came back, we decided to build the common service tunnel in downtown Singapore, in this Marina Bay area. So in the Marina Bay area, we do have the common service tunnel already in existence, and that is really inspired by Yokohama. I think in Antwerp, I'm proud to say when I was at PSA and we were corporatizing and internationalizing PSA, one of our pioneer projects where we had a collaboration with was with one of the container terminals in Antwerp. And I think today, Chong Meng, I think the partnership is still going strong, right? Yeah. So I think these are the wonderful relationships between port cities that we have forged over the years. And I think today we have a great forum for the experts and the chiefs of these ports to discuss at this forum. So thank you very much for being here today. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Khoo. With this, let us begin our session by inviting Mr. de Wever on stage. Mayor, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I was asked to speak briefly on the redevelopment of port areas into new urban areas. And I have got a small presentation for you. I hope it works. There you see the city of Antwerp. On the left you see a tall sail ship. We have modern ships also, but this weekend we had the tall ships race at Antwerp. They just left. I missed it, unfortunately. It was important to be here. More important, on the right side you see a satellite photo of the port nowadays, and you see how we developed from the city in the south to the north, up until the Dutch border, how it developed on the right bank first, and then later also on the left bank of the city. The secret of Antwerp is that it is an inland seaport. It's 80 kilometers from the sea, but big vessels can reach it. And it always been, the river has always been the source of all our prosperity. Antwerp is in the range of 60% of the purchasing power, truck range of 60% of the purchasing power in Europe, and has a large cargo generating power. Here you see an air photo of the city with the historical urban development indicated on it. In the center you see the medieval town, the 19th century belt, and then over the ring road, the 20th century city expansion. And then in the north, of course, there is a port. Our history dates back to the Stone Age. We have archaeological finds that people lived there in the Stone Age. There was certainly a Roman settlement. And Antwerp grew throughout the medieval times to be a very big city. In the 16th century, it was, after Paris, the biggest city of Europe, and certainly the most important one. It was the capital of trade, culture, and commerce. Today, we still think we are the most important city of Europe, but fortunately for us, the world has changed quite a bit. Here is a a slide of what our port is doing. 208 million of cargo. It took us from the 16th century to 1980 to reach 100 million tons. And took us 25 years to go from 100 to 200. So we certainly hope we can progress further in that direction. You see that we're strong on containers and that we have a very nice balance on loaded and unloaded cargo, which is always interesting. This is a slide I always like to show. That's in 2015, where we won one of the fastest growing container ports of the world. You can see the figures of the other ports, but not. Let's progress. Has had a lot to do with the investments we made to ensure the nautical accessibility of our port, with the deepening of our river, which is a very important project. There was a lot of doubt, can we handle the bigger ships, 13,000 TEU, 19,000 TEU? Well, we can, and you see the number of ships reaching Antwerp that is rising. So that's a challenge that we fortunately met, and that paid off. Here you see the port development on the slide. There you must follow the colors. You see the red piece is the oldest part. It's just the shores of the actual city where the ships in medieval times came. Then the light blue is what was built in the 19th century up until the Second World War. The purple is what was built after the Second World War until the 1965. Green is what was built from 1965 to the end of the century. And the orange parts are the most recent port developments since the millennium. And we are still going on. Just last month, we opened the Kieldrecht lock, which is the largest lock of the world. And we broke our own record, because before the Kieldrecht lock was the largest lock, we also already had the largest lock of the world. So we're still investing. In the future, we hope, there you see the nice PSA terminal, and to the right of it, we hope to build an entirely new tidal dock. And we hope that it's finished in time, because Europe is very complicated with regulations. It takes a long time before we can decide something, and even longer before it gets finished. But we hope, we're starting to work on the political process now. We hope to get it done in time to ensure the further expansion of our port. That would be the future part. That's in purple. You see a spaceship on an old building, which is our the new office of the Port Authority that we will be opening in a few months' time. It's a very strange building. It's developed by Zaha Hadid, very famous architect who unfortunately passed away. But there's a downside to, and I come to the actual subject, there's a downside of rapid change. Rapid change, and a port that physically moves away from a city leaves you with zones that are literally abandoned. And re-engineering the port areas and industrial areas into new areas of opportunity, that's a big task. And I would like briefly to present you two cases where we got started to work on that. Here you see a first picture. We had the first petroleum harbor of Europe. In the early 20th century, already we had a petroleum harbor in the south of the city. Nowadays, of course, petroleum harbors are not so far up the river. That's impossible with the vessels today. So what you get is this, mostly abandoned industrial site. Looks like a post-apocalyptical site now. You could shoot horror movies in it. You could easily see a horror movie here or here. It's polluted ground. Nobody wants to invest in it. Certainly nobody wants to live there. And it's at 3 kilometers of the historical city center. It's very, very near. So what do you do with this? You see a picture of the old quays. These were built in the 19th century. They're on a brick wall. The wall is beginning to slide into the river. So even parts of the quays are totally unstable. So even if you would like to invest, it would be very dangerous to put something on there. So a lot of work to be done. So what did we do? We started the Blue Gate project. The Blue Gate project is a project to transform this entire site into a sustainable, innovative, and water-bound industrial site, where we want to attract high-level companies in circular economy and innovation, that are built to meet the highest standards in sustainability. And we will build a heat network there to make the entire site CO2 neutral or even negative if it's possible. On the slide, you see what is already being done. That's the renewal of the case, where we had new technology invented and engineered to make this possible. This month, we will start the sanitation of the polluted terrain of the ground. The end result, hopefully, here you see the part that's already finished, where we had new case, and there's a new company that is already settled on it. We will have 3 zones: a logistics zone, in which we, with the new quay facilities, we'll have a logistical platform where inland vessels will be able to load and unload products. And along this quay, we will have a site of more than 13 hectares to be available for smart logistics, including city distribution, which is a major technique to enhance the quality of life in our city. And transport by water is, of course, a very sustainable form of transport. Second zone will be a production zone, where the new company has already been installed. It's Bexco. Bexco produces high-tech ropes for the offshore industry. And it's a company that has very rare competitors in the world. The third zone will be a research and development zone, in which the most important project is BlueChem, an incubator for sustainable chemistry. You have the second largest petrochemical cluster in the world. First is Houston, the second is Antwerp, where Singapore is trying to get over us to be the second, but we are trying to stay ahead of you. See if that works out. BlueChem, where the chemical sector, the city, the university, and other partners like the Flemish Institute for Technical Research will work together to make an incubator for sustainable chemistry. So 3 zones: logistics, production, and R&D. And we hope in the very near future that it will look like this, or this, and this. Very far from the post-apocalyptical landscape that it is today. That's the first project in the south of the city. Another one is in the north of the city. It's an entirely different project. Here you see the north of the city. We're much further along the renewal than we are in the south. Here, originally was the historical port, the 19th century port, which has been abandoned for most port use, which we now want to transform into a residential, an office, and a cultural area in the north of our city. Here you can see it's marked. It's called Eilandje, the little island. We'll explain the name later. Just in the north of the city, where the first docks historically were dug. That looked like this. This was actually dug by Napoleon, because Napoleon considered Antwerp un pistolet braqué sur le cœur d'Angleterre. I'll translate that myself. It's a gun drawn at the heart of the United Kingdom. Unfortunately for Napoleon, it didn't work out that well for him, but he wanted to conquer Great Britain from Antwerp, even before the Brexit. And it looked like that. The very first dock was made by him. Later on, the Dutch King Willem I built another dock, and so on. And this slide explains where the name comes from, the little island. It looked like a landscape of islands. But in the second half of the 20th century, of course, vessels became bigger, docks became bigger, locks became bigger. The port moved further up down the north of the river, and we got an empty barrier zone between the city and the port, where nobody wanted to invest. There was nothing to see there. We offered premiums to renew houses. Nobody took them. So something else needed to be done. And in the 1990s, a vision was made to rebuild and revive the entire area. We hired a Catalonian architect, Sola Morales, to make a global vision on this area of the port. And we got to work on it. First projects were the renewal of old warehouses into fancy offices and lofts, and the renewal of the public domain. Also, the construction of a nice marina, slightly smaller than the one you have here, but it's nice anyway. Then you are a garden city. That's something we picked up. Visiting you, so we built a park to install some fresh air into that part of town, a green lung. And we said goodbye to very bad old habits, like using a nice part of your city just to park your car. That's unthinkable nowadays, but it used to be a habit. A cornerstone project was the red building you see over there. Some consider it to be a very beautiful building. Others have another opinion of it, but it's a special building anyway. It's a museum, and it was the first main attraction pole to draw in a lot of visitors and to attract high standard investors in restaurants and bars around the marina. Then large residential development followed. Antwerp does not have a lot of tall buildings. We have the first skyscraper of Europe in the center of town. But as the city planner of London, Peter Rice, once told me, never build a tall building unless you need it, because it's not good to have them unless you need them. Well, to cope with the growing of our population, we're never going to build tall buildings in the historical center in the medieval town. That would be ludicrous. But at the outskirts of our town, we built taller buildings, not very tall buildings, but taller buildings like the ones you see here. Then the next project that followed was another museum, more in the north. There's a cultural north-south axis in the area, the Red Star Line Museum. Millions of people actually left through Antwerp to find a new life in America and Canada. Millions of people, from the end of the 19th century until the 1930s with the Red Star Line. You might know the Titanic, that was a White Star Line. Well, we had the Red Star Lines. Our ships didn't sink, which was an advantage. And they all left from this building. And we have a nice museum there, and it draws in, of course, American tourists, Canadian tourists, looking for the origins of where they came from. A lot of Jewish tourists also. Practically all the Jews in North America went through Antwerp, from Eastern Europe, went through Antwerp, and left to the New World. So that's what we already did. This is the future, where we will develop a new city square, and the old warehouses will become a new square, and the warehouses will become open market spaces. Then here you see on the left the new towers. On the right side, we have another area already designed to put in residential projects, taller buildings that we can have there. And finally, that will look like this, hopefully. And finally, we will also have a space for housing boats, which we do not have nowadays, which we will have in the future at a very nice quay there. So, in conclusion, there you see the spaceship again, the new harbor house, which is at the end of that dock. In conclusion, I would like to say that it's possible to transform old port areas into new urban and industrial areas, but you need, 1, a vision and a plan. 2, you need long-term work and perseverance. 3, you need public investments, public-private partnerships to draw in more private investors and to get things going. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. de Wever. We would now like to invite Mr. Hirahara on stage. Deputy Mayor, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hirahara. I'm a deputy mayor of Yokohama. Before I start, I have shared on 60 seconds clip to show you what the Yokohama city is like. It's a waterfront city where people and modernity are in harmony and holds great appeal both for those who live there and those who visit. In 2014, we received a special mention in the Lee Kuan Yew World City Prize. And also in 2008 and 2013, an African Development City partnership was built. And in 2017, we have been selected to host the Asian Development Bank's 50th annual meetings. So in Global City, we are striving to make it more attractive. And firstly, I would like to briefly introduce our city, Yokohama. Located only 30 minutes from the capital of Tokyo, Yokohama is Japan's second largest city with a population of approximately 3.73 million. This includes around 80,000 from more than 150 other countries and regions as a gateway of Japan. It also has an excellent business environment that has been chosen by numerous companies from inside and outside Japan. Its GDP is approximately 12.34 trillion yen, equivalent to that of an OECD member country. In addition, it has excellent public transportation access, and Haneda Airport can be reached in as little as 22 minutes. And in 2015, Yokohama received around 37.6 million tourists. Its hotels had a yearly average occupancy rate of 88%. And tourist consumption was about 318.8 billion yen. It's all-time high. Just like Singapore, Yokohama is a port city. In our urban development, we focus on the relationship with the port because it is the city's strength. This is why, in order to mold the central waterfront area into the face of a charming global city, we are currently developing the city center based on 3 pillars. Development of business and industry that propels Yokohama's next generation vitality, and development of a Yokohama style of living in which creativity and citizen power thrive, and development of a city center that integrates the charm of the city's many unique characteristics and develops together with the port.
So that this actually there's a port city that the Yokohama will be able to be and be able to have the business industries as well as the various as a popular spot of the brand of Yokohama City to be able to kind of emit to the world. And the Minato Mirai 21 district is in that center and becomes the core of that kind of city area. And as you can see on the slide, the gray area is the reclaimed land portion. In the Minato Mirai 21 district is more of that they would like to have not just more of the business, but also the MICE type of the bases, hubs, and this area is a total of 186 hectares, where the currently is about 86% in its development of this progress. The total cost of this infrastructure development project has so far been approximately 520.2 billion yen, or $5.2 billion. Yokohama has borne about 84.5 billion yen, or 16% of this. And we've also used corporate bonds or revenue from selling the landfill land, which have amounted about $4 billion US, And also the subsidy of $300 million has also been added. And currently the Minato Mirai is also in this development process. Let me give you some of the background until today. The concept was announced in 1965 during Japan's high growth period, and because of the unipolar concentration of the economy and population in Tokyo and Yokohama suffered the negative effects of dramatic inbound migration and chaotic development of the capital. And it became more of a suburban commuter town with so-called bed town, but was losing identity as a business region. Furthermore, the Yokohama station area rapidly developing the commercial district and transfer points in the left top area of the slide, as well as of some of the older city center has actually made a divide in the port city. And being a Tokyo commuter town, Yokohama resolved to develop this area as a part of a wider strategic project to become distinct autonomous city. So, the main focus was shifting the character of the area between the two city centers to be away from the piers and shipyards that had thrived during Japan's high growth period. It was a major turnaround, and therefore that could become more of increase the value and presence. This type of concentration of the functions or access needed was being developed. And originally, this was the area where they had the shipbuilding type of centers, and until now, the transformation took place in this order. So the excellent city designs, and therefore, it is very much a waterfront being representing the Japanese development. And also, this area, where it was more of a heavy industry area, was now open and available to all the citizens. So transport to stimulate the city in this Minato Mirai area in order to improve its presence, not just from the Yokohama area, but in the periphery area, especially the access from the major capital of Tokyo needed to improve. So therefore, to the Yokohama station, some of the private railroads that Tokyo was made into a kind of shared line which would connect Tokyo's CBD with the Yokohama as a network of $2.6 billion investment in getting a subway of Minato Mirai line. And it was 1992 when it started and opened in 2004. Now they have this 3-minute interval during the morning rush. So every day, about 200,000 users that do get on this the subway line. And now I would like to talk about the outcome of the Minato Mirai 21 project. And as of 2015, it has hosted offices around 1,770 companies and 102,000 employees, and about 76 million people actually visit this area. And it also had ripple effect on the economy. City activity is valued at about approximately the $17.5 billion and about the $6 billion higher than 5 years ago. So therefore, our plan is going to far exceed the original approximately 1.75 trillion yen, and also the city tax revenue, and also is going to be about 158 million US dollars or 15.8 billion yen, and therefore that the stable tax and district over the 18 years from 1997 to 2014 is about $2.26 billion in total. And therefore, as a result of these efforts, we can have good commercial and business functions and leading companies, such as Nissan, Shiseido, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. All these leading companies have expanded their presence here in Yokohama. And also a number of global firms, including Fuji Xerox and Lenovo, also have established their bases in Yokohama. Instantly, Yokohama offers an incentive program in line with an investment to encourage more entrepreneurs to make use of the excellent business environment. This system includes reducing the property tax on new buildings, building the expansions of land acquisition, and offers subsidies, and therefore up to about 50 million US dollars. So, such programs are there, and Minato Mirai 21 will continue to develop even further. So, in closing, I would like to introduce some future initiatives. And in 2017, a cruise terminal will be completed in order to enhance cruise ship berthing functions. And in 2020, we hope to have new MICE facilities scheduled to be completed, increasing city's value as an international tourism and MICE destination hosting. Aiming to be an incredibly smart and environmental future city that will be attractive to the world, Yokohama has initiatives thus far that we add on new initiatives on the collaboration of the environmental technology and collaborations for us to become an environmental showcase. So please keep your eye on development of Minato Mirai 21 in Yokohama. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hirahara. We would like to now invite our presenter, Chief Executive of Maritime Port Authority of Singapore, Mr. Andrew Tan.
Okay, very good afternoon, everyone. It's so heartening to see that we're all here presenting to a full house of people. It just goes to show that all port developments around the world are attracting a lot of attention, and certainly you've heard from the two presenters, the two mayors of their own efforts in terms of transforming the Port of Antwerp as well as Yokohama, and you can see the tremendous benefits that brings in terms of how it generates new economic activities, how it generates new opportunities for the economy as a whole. I must qualify that my presentation focuses on our next generation port project. I'm not presenting on the overall master plan of Singapore, but to the extent that it relates to that part of the region where we'll be moving the port towards to, I think it also opens up some very exciting prospects ahead. But let me start by putting things in context. I think most of you know that Singapore started off our existence as a trading post, and we've been a trading post ever since, only one of extent, and we have continued to play that role as a place where you exchange goods and now services, exchange of people, the meeting place for new ideas, new innovation. But really, we started off as a small little trading post in this part of the region, but over time, and some of it attribute to the founding of Raffles, founding of Singapore by Raffles, Stamford Raffles, but actually it goes way behind that to the 14th century, but our fortune has waxed and waned, but over time, we have continued to maintain that role. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how have we managed to maintain that role throughout the sea change that we've experienced all these centuries? And I think that the answer to that question, in terms of making ourselves relevant, continues to be a key consideration in terms of how we continue to regenerate ourselves to play a useful role in the global economy itself. If you look at Maritime Singapore today from what it was in the past, we are not only a global shipping hub port. As you can see, we are still the second largest port by container volume at 30.9 million TEUs as of last year. But I think we are still the world's largest transshipment hub, the world's largest bunkering port, and the world's within the top 5 largest registries. But beyond that, we have also now developed into International Maritime Center, where we have more than 5,000 maritime companies that are based in Singapore. We have companies that are into maritime finance. We have the classification societies. We have the P&I clubs. We have the brokers, the agents, more than 130 shipping groups. Probably you won't find such a concentration of shipping groups in any part in the world than you can find in Singapore itself. And that's a phenomenon that has arisen over the last 10 years through our efforts to build upon our global hub port in order to attract and anchor these companies to establish their presence in Singapore to serve the wider needs across the region and even beyond. So today, the maritime sector contributes some 7% to our GDP and provides employment to 170,000 people. So you heard what Ting Chai mentioned about the move of our port from where they are, the city terminals, Keppel, Brani, Tanjong Pagar, to the western part of the island, where we'll be building a port that will consolidate our city terminals, double the current capacity, and allow us to handle up to 65 million TEUs. The next generation port will comprise essentially of 4 key thrusts. The first thrust is that, as you can see from this slide, is that of an efficient port. Well, let me start with an intelligent port. An intelligent port where we intend to harness the latest technologies in order for us to be able to manage vessels coming to our port. If you flew in over a Sunday night or morning, you'll find all these little tiny dots of light that along the coast of Singapore. Those are 1,000 over vessels that are in our port at any one time. It shows how busy our port is. And going forward, I think we expect the port to be even busier. Not necessarily more congested, but certainly it will be as congested as it is today, but certainly the ships themselves are getting larger. The new port will be able to handle the larger vessels, including the current mega vessels, and even if they grow a bit larger than that. But what we intend to do is to harness the latest technologies in order for us to be able to manage the traffic into our port as part of our new vessel traffic management center, as well as our integrated command and control center itself. We are already in various partnerships in anticipation of these developments, one of which is with IBM to harness data analytics, looking at detection of hotspots, detection of anomalous activities, and also to be able for us to manage the traffic in and out of our port itself. The next generation port will also be a safe and secure port. I think security is something which will be key on the minds of many of the planners today going forward. And I suppose this will be one of the trade-offs that we have to manage between having a port that is open and accessible to the public versus one that is also prone to either any kinds of threats which we will have to anticipate and we have to manage itself. As an efficient port, we are looking into a maritime single window to reduce the number of touch points for shipping companies coming into the ships coming into Singapore, having to pass information across different agencies. The whole intention is to pass it on to just one agency, would then disseminate to the other agencies, and this will streamline some of the processes and also allow for just-in-time planning and coordination. This is a part where I think there are many experts in the room from PSA who can elaborate on this, but essentially PSA has embarked on a major technological effort to automate as much as possible their terminal operations. In fact, right now they have several projects underway, one of which is the automated guided vehicles. This by itself is nothing new because ports like in Maslak are probably into their 3rd or 4th generation AGVs now that it's in operation. But I think on our part, it will be the first port anywhere where we are trying to do it for a transshipment hub. So it's a very complex algorithm that we have to go into the systems here. PSA has already embarked on deploying this system in their living laboratory, and they are looking to upscale that in time when the first berths at Tuas will be ready, so that our future generation port will be automated end-to-end. And you can see here that they are also looking to various other technologies you can leverage on, even including harnessing drones for preventive maintenance, and these are some of the projects that we are working together with PSA on. Because land is so scarce in Singapore, we will have to look at how we can optimize land use when we move the port to Tuas. And even though Tuas, if you go there now, it's a vast area, but nonetheless, when it's built up, I think we'll find that even that space itself will get congested pretty soon. So as a result, we are exploring the use of both above ground and underground space for storage purposes, whether it's for oil, water, warehousing. These are all areas which we are currently doing some studies. But above ground too also offers us opportunities to create so-called new land, where we can have mixed-use developments as well as clustering of possibly logistics, maritime-related businesses, along with the port-centric activities. So these are also options being studied for the next generation port. This is the fourth thrust of the next generation port, a clean and community-oriented port. I think PM mentioned this too when he commissioned Pasir Panjang Cemetery and 4 as something to look forward when we plan towards the next generation port. And certainly some of the ideas that you have seen around some of the other ports that have implemented some of these measures, including the 2 presentations earlier on. I think there's opportunities for us to also look at how to make ports less sterile in the way in which they are currently built and operated. But of course, having to also balance some of the considerations I highlighted earlier on in terms of the need to make sure that they're also safe and secure. But having said that, I think there is opportunity for us to incorporate more green features, more community spaces, and bring more of these activities near or as near to the port as possible as part of the wider development of the port region. In fact, when I visited the port of Rotterdam some years back, I think one of the key takeaways I had when I spoke to the planners was that when they developed Maasvlakte 2, they were also very concerned about, as the port moves further afield from the heart of the city itself, the connection that the people would have with the port would be lost in that process. And in that way, the support that you get for the port would also loosen over time. And that's something that I think we need to maintain, particularly as our ports will also be consolidated in the west, away from the city center. Right now, it's something that's taken for granted, but in the future, in order to garner that community support, I think you do really need to put a bit more heart and soul thinking into how you build a port that can also, in a way, be very much embedded with the rest of the community. And of course, having worked or run the National Environment Agency, I come with certain credentials which have to make sure that the port is also built to the highest environmental standards as possible. And I think this is something which together with Chong Meng and his team, this is something we recognize also, because as we build a port that is to last until the next, or the middle of this century and beyond, I think it's important to bear in mind that at some stage development or human development will also come closer to the port itself, and therefore it's important that we start factoring these aspects into the port, whether it's better air, water quality, and so on. I think these are important considerations, especially when the public begins to value more of these aspects. So I think we also want to leverage on renewable, clean energy for the port. In fact, the AGVs that are running right now run on they're electric operated. So that by itself already reduces a fair bit of emissions. And I think we can harness the solar energy, and we will do so. Another thing that we are doing, and in fact in discussions with other ports, is how we can prepare Singapore to be LNG bunker ready. We are already the world's largest bunkering hub, and we also want to be amongst the first in the region to be ready for LNG bunkered vessels. And that's something we are discussing with various ports, including the port of Yokohama, as well as the port of Rotterdam, Antwerp, where we already have an existing MOU to harmonize some of these protocol and technical standards. And we are hoping to expand that conversation to include other ports within the region. And maybe one day, just like what Ting Chai mentioned, the first vessel, the first container vessel that called upon our Tanjong Pagar terminals was a Japanese vessel. Maybe you could have an LNG Japanese vessel that also calls upon the Singapore port in the not too distant future. Of course, if you set the Tuas port within the larger context of what's happening in the western region, I think there's also some exciting developments that are happening there. I think you know that the government has plans to transform the western region into a more livable and sustainable part of Singapore itself, and there are various ideas in terms of not only enhancing the connectivity in terms of the transport infrastructure, MRT, but also bring in green spaces, greater walkability, cyclability, as well as looking at mixed use of spaces. And of course, yesterday you read about this Jurong Lake District and the ideas that's been put out for a call for proposals and as to how you can perhaps transform that into the next central business district in Singapore. So these are all very exciting ideas. So when we develop the port, I think we have to factor these ideas into our plans to see how they can complement one another, and we are certainly hoping that the port itself can be an iconic part of this whole wider Western region transformation effort itself. And we've seen examples from the two ports, Yokohama and Antwerp, but I think you can also draw some ideas from other ports like Rotterdam. We have a representative here. And this is an example where they've also brought community activities closer to the port itself. Los Angeles, again, bring very livable elements, waterfront walkways, viewing decks, even beaches near to the port. And even Osaka, again, trying to bring more human-oriented activities to the port to make it more exciting and vibrant. So this will be our effort towards livable and sustainable Singapore. And I want to end off with just a video clip showing the laying of the first K-zone for the Tuas megaport, which took place just a few weeks back, just to highlight to you that this is a reality. And this is a mega project. These K-zones itself are 22 stories high. It's a mega engineering project. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Tan, for showing us this very exciting development at the new Tuas port. We're coming to the moderated Q&A session. We would like to invite Mr. De Wever and Mr. Hirahara on the stage, please.
I think you've seen 3 presentations. I'm quite sure you have many questions in your mind. I would like to suggest that perhaps you mention your name and also the organization that you represent. And given the time constraints, perhaps I I will just straight away open the floor for questions. If not, I will ask a few questions. So is there anyone who has some questions to ask? Maybe as you're thinking of some questions to ask, I can ask the Mayor of Antwerp. I noticed from your presentation that you talked about this mental process in terms of making that transformation as an important part of this whole effort itself. I think from the respective presentations, it seems almost so easy that, and the idea should take off in terms of what you want to transform Antwerp into. But how do you come about in terms of organizing that whole effort and bringing together various stakeholders in order to buy into this vision of the transformation of Antwerp?
I think the beginning of solving a problem is always necessity, and I think you know that very well in Singapore. You have a lot of found a lot of solution because you have to do so. You're a very compact nation, so you have a lot of challenges. You need solutions, and you find them. In Antwerp as well, when you are looking for, when your city starts to expand, you need new areas to build. Then you start looking for old areas to redevelop. And what has been lingering for years and years, all of a sudden becomes a vision becomes a plan. You're going for the long term and you get things done because you need to do so. And that's also always the biggest drive you can have, the necessity to solve a problem. The more challenges you have, the more you can consider that to be a competitive edge on others who are doing fine but are not challenged by problems.
Mr. Hirahara, do you also encounter the same challenges in terms of trying to transform Yokohama? Yes.
For Yokohama City, as it was said before, that the container terminal is becoming the center of the development, and the logistic center has to be outside of the Yokohama City, and that was our past. And in Yokohama, the port, the center has been, it was quite close to the Yokohama City Center, and so thinking of that, and center, the logistics center is moving outside of the city, so there will be a different way of using those areas which are closer to the city, and that is why there's planning such as the Minatomirai 21 project. But Singapore is a bit different because Yokohama, there will be manufacturing of a shipyard. They actually own the land, or they are related to a port business. Actually, they own the land. So in that sense, the vision of the city building, Yokohama City has to show the direction properly, and we have to share that vision and seek cooperation. So there has been a lot of efforts in terms of that. And for now, we really are proud of the fact that we have this aim for the city, and we have been sharing this vision and continuously building the city. And this is why we are so proud of Yokohama City, and we have also been striving and making a lot of efforts.
Thank you very much. Maybe if I come back to Mayor Bart, there's a lot of interest in terms of trying to build more innovation centers, whether it's in the city, whether it's in the port, whether it's in some part of town. And do you see this as very much a part of Antwerp's efforts too, also to try and latch on to the new economy? I think this is also a question which I will ask Mr. Hirahara.
Well, yesterday I went to listen to your Prime Minister, and he told that the new economy, innovation in the digital era, is for older people. We're all migrants into the new economy. We have to learn the language, but we speak with an accent. I speak with a heavy accent. I'm a history major. I'm very far personally from being interested in the newest technology. But I've noticed, of course, attending this conference in the many venues, that every city on the world at this moment wants to become a smart city. Everybody's working on the same issues because we have to, the necessity is there, we have to become more efficient. In my city, I am trying to cut costs in the budget to be able to do more investments. We're shifting from exploitation cost to investment. But how do you get the same levels of service for your citizens if you have less money to invest in it? Well, one of the answers is, of course, digital innovation, and we are heavily investing in that, already picking the first fruits from that. We have a big port there also, and I saw it in your presentation as well. We're working on exactly the same things to improve on our logistic efficiency, on our mobility. You need the Internet of Things technology. You can start using things like blockchain to improve on your administration. The possibilities are limitless. And everybody wants to be a smart city. I think it's a question of finding the right projects for your city. And Antwerp, at this moment, is trying to be what we call a beta city. We cannot be an alpha city on innovation like London or Berlin or Haifa in Israel, but we are too small for that. But we can be a beta city. That means a city where you can start up innovative businesses, where you can scale up, where you can find a test audience. And there's one project I would like to mention, then I finish. That is the Urban Living Lab. We have put in sensors in the entire city. We have invested or are finishing now the 2 radiophonic networks that we need to operate them. And we have a contract with a mobile phone operator, which makes that everybody in the world who has an application for Internet of Things can come to Antwerp and immediately test it on 200,000 people, because their phones are connected to the sensors, and you can immediately launch an application, see how it works and what are the results of it. We have the hardware for it, and in that sense we want to be a beta city. You come to Antwerp, you test, you find your first market, you start to scale up, and hopefully we can pick the fruits from that.
That's really exciting to see yourself as a test bed for such mobile applications and e-solutions. What about in Yokohama, Mr. Hirahara?
Yes, for Yokohama, we just said about this city development, but as an environmental future city is another position that Yokohama has in Japan as a top runner of the environmental progress in Japan. And to be specific, it is called the Smart City Project of Yokohama in the Minato Mirai, the area of the various verification, the demonstration, the projects, and testing the projects have various outcome of the fruits are coming out. So now it's more of a pragmatic application of the council of the Smart City Application Council, where the various carriers or the facilities or utility energy companies, and also the Minato Mirai various operators, business operators, all getting together at the table and look at this environment and energy use and have this coordination alliance to progress. So that's the stage right now, but when we look at the CO2 emission reduction, we cannot see that it's not so obvious. So sometimes the understanding is hard to reach, but this area, we look to the ICT area for the various control, but the actual root cause of the initiative that what the people can do to prevent it, that kind of a philosophical or mindset, that part is very important for everybody to embrace, so that the aware building is something that we are intentionally, strongly taking the charge.
Thank you. I think at this stage, let me return to the floor, see if anyone has any questions to ask. I also see Chong Meng sitting there, and as we were talking about innovation, I thought I might also perhaps ask him to share a bit about his new initiative. It's called a very interesting name. It's called PSA Unbox. In case some of you think that this is the next Pokemon Go game, you might not be far off from that if he can kindly just share this new idea that PSA has just embarked upon.
Well, Chong Meng here. It's not a new idea per se. It's a VC arm of PSA. It's recognizing that for people to want to create something new, to want to see how they can challenge the rules of industry, they first need a couple of things. One, they need a domain upon which they have information, that they have an understanding of, that they can begin to map out and see if there are any different ways of looking at the same problem equation. And two, they need sponsors. Hopefully sponsors who are able to support them and ensure that there is scaling up and then there is commercialization. Now, PSA is actually, the port is one part of a whole logistics system. And for the longest time, in B2B space, the components of a B2B system are actually not easily understood by somebody who tries to come in and say, what can I do with this whole ecosystem that delivers a particular service or delivers a particular set of objectives for the customer. Now, in the customer space, whether it's booking a hotel room or a bed and breakfast or a taxi, it's actually easier to cut through the chain of all the components that have hitherto been created by governments or private companies. But in B2B, if you look at the logistic chain, there are many parts. So we thought, why don't we be one of the components that offer ourselves as a sort of a test center to link up first with people who have ideas about the port, but then subsequently for people who have ideas also about the other parts of the logistics system, with the port as one of the, if you like, hub centers and sometimes, the areas of concentration. So that's basically the idea. We're still in the early stages of seeing who and what type of ideas are available out there and seeing what we can fund.
I think this idea of test bedding is taking root not only in Antwerp, Yokohama, but Singapore, and even on the part of MPA. If we can just open up our port for test bedding of ideas, I think that's where new solutions may arise from that. But let me ask questions from the audience. There's one question there.
Hi, I'm Mr. Kwek from offshore marine industry. Since the subject today is talk about the relationship between the port and the cities, I'd like to bring the subject in on history. And I noticed that the presenter down here, I think 3 of you all, I just noticed there are 2 with a history background. If I hear it correctly.
You're one and I'm one.
Yeah, there are 2 of you all.
It's 2 of us.
I noticed also the presenter also shared that no need today, I'm quite sure those who have traveled and overseas. And you talk about city or port, it's always very closely associated to the history. I'm very encouraging to hear, so-called to see yourself, Andrew, to present it. At least the history of Singapore don't start from 1819. You go all the way back to 14th century. My question is Singapore port is part of the intention to bring out this museum element to be part of the DNA, the element in the future port development?
This question is directed at me. Okay, all right. Bear with me. I'll give a short answer. I think if you look at our history over the centuries, right, the only way we have stayed relevant is the fact that each time there's a global change, we've adapted to that change rather than try to stand in the face of this change. So when you have new developments, even like Uber, for example, we are not against Uber. Yes, we recognize that there's a need for a level playing field, but if there's a disruptive business model that can do things or move things faster, I think these are things that we have to be receptive to. These are some of the new technological breakthroughs that the Internet of Things and so on have brought about. So when you look at our role as a port, I think if you look at it beyond simply as a place where boxes are moved, right, and that is becoming a more commoditized activity with larger vessels driving down the unit cost, and it's going to be a commodity, just like any other commodity. So you really have to ask yourself where that value add comes from, and that comes from not only having a port that moves these goods around, but the port being linked to this wider maritime services cluster that brings in the lawyers, the bankers, the other professionals, the shipbrokers, the classification societies, and that entire ecosystem itself will be an important driver for Maritime Singapore going forward. Because at some stage, the port will reach a finite expansion, right? But the rest of the maritime cluster doesn't encounter that same sort of limit. It is at once virtual as it is at once physical. And these are international networks. These are international, it's a part of an overall global network, and that's the part that we need to build upon. And that's the part where even, in my view, players like PSA would also have to think about in terms of whether these services that they provide a greater room for growth as they look at future growth opportunities in addition to the ports that they have around the world. It's the services around these ports and the value-added activities that will generate the new areas of growth. So I think initiatives like PSA Unbox and so on is part of PSA's way to understand what are some of the technological changes that are impacting on the transportation industry, and for them, where can they find new sources of growth going forward. Any other questions? How about the side of the... Yes.
I am Shruti from Maritime, we spoke about using IoT devices to capture a lot of data. I just wanted to understand a bit more from the two different cities. What is your view with regards to using data and how data may transform the maritime trade in your own perspective? Thank you.
I already warned you that I speak with a heavy accent in the language of technical innovation, but I understand that all the large players in our harbor are working at this very moment to share their data, to create the big data, and then to mine the big data to enhance their efficiency. And it's exactly the same things that we are trying to do at the city level with our administration. I'm old enough to remember the times that you needed to go to a bank to get your banking stuff done. Now I do that at home. I save the bank a lot of money and I'm more happy as a customer. And I think that's a model that we all need to copy in our city administration. We're trying to do that. We're already dreaming of using blockchain, which would cut 85% of all your administrative needs, because you have a universal ledger on the internet. I can imagine if you are a port company that it would be very interesting, as you are doing, to look into this new technology. The idea that the digital economy is something apart from the traditional economy is a ludicrous idea. You need to get the two things married. That's what we are trying to do. We've formed a startup village in Antwerp, where we are attracting startup companies, but where we are also inviting our traditional sectors, the petrochemical sector, the medical sector, trying to get the two to marry each other and to see how ideas of young people can immediately lead to big efficiency winnings in the traditional sectors. And I think the only reason why we call this disruptive as an historian, we are two historians, that's remarkable. Two historians who found a useful purpose in their life. That's something rare. The only reason we're calling this disruptive is it's not different than the previous industrial revolutions that we already had. The only difference is the speed in which all business models are going down. In the first industrial revolution with the steam machine, people used horses for 50 or 60 years, apart from the steam machine. I don't think we will see that with the digital economy. I think that business models that are strong today will be gone tomorrow. The big example, and I'll conclude, is I read a story about the guy that invented Netflix. I brought it with me on my iPad. I can watch wherever I want in the world. That guy presented his idea at Blockbusters, the big video chain of video stores in America. And he said, well, what if you put all your films on a digital platform, and then you can rent them out and people can beam them in at home? They turned him away. Now Blockbusters is belly up and Netflix is all over the world. And I think that is what we will see, and that is why the race to become smart as fast as you can, and if possible, faster than your neighbor, is of such importance.
I think that's very well said, Mr. Hirahara. What about Yokohama? How are you making use of data to enhance your competitiveness?
今日午前中 PSA を
This morning, I went and see the PSA, the actual scale, the containers numbers, and was amazing that Yokohama is boasting, but we are not even 1/10 of Singapore. However, this Yokohama to be the actual hub of the containers, we are aiming with that objective in mind. And for the city, 4 years plan is something that we have put forth. With that objective to be achieved is the efforts that we are making. And not just the Yokohama city, but this year, along with Yokohama, the Kawasaki, the periphery, the area, we have made incorporation. It is under the government, the support, that the data and the target values that we are looking at such the measures to improve Yokohama in its capacity and competitiveness. And so as a port, that kind of data we hope to share with the citizens. And this will be something different in the data, but the Minami Mirai progress, we have a very big, enormous budget from the taxpayers, the tax, and the initial stage of the development, we had criticisms from the citizens that it was a waste. But now that we are making the progress and how much the budget that we get from the taxes, now we get the surplus, that it's actually giving returns now, so that such understanding from the citizens is something that is very valid, and therefore data to be used for such conviction, I think, is something that we would definitely try to extend and disseminate.
Thank you very much. I think we have just a few minutes left. Are there any other questions before I close this session? Okay, the lady at the end.
Hello. Hi, good evening. I'm Charlene from Gulf Insider. My question's for the Mayor of Antwerp. You mentioned that you're using blockchain for your port operations. Could you elaborate more on that?
The smart answer would be no, I can't, because I do not understand half of it and the other half is gibberish to me. And I told you we're not using it, we're dreaming of using it. We just last week held a colloquium on blockchain, because even if we would want to, we can't. That's something we discussed yesterday in the session with all the mayors. Very often, national legislation is much slower to pick on innovation. That is why cities should rule the world, and why Singapore is in such an excellent position, as you are a city and a country. You have one level of government. I can tell you I come from a country with several levels of government. And even if tomorrow my guys, I have 5 people working on that, the idea of using blockchain for your administration, if they would find the solutions, I would still have to transform a lot of regional and federal legislation, which I'm trying to do. I'm active at different levels to make it happen. But what could we do if we could use blockchain? I'll give you one example. Today, if you have a child, you need to go to City Hall to report the fact that you have a child. And then somebody needs to write it down. Then it's checked that the child is actually there, because the child gives you the right to social welfare. And that are all administrative costs. With blockchain, it would be enough that the doctor who delivers your child pushes on his smartphone saying, I delivered a child from Mrs. X, and everything is done. If we empower that man with this administrative facility, all the rest is done. So the possibilities are limitless to avoid administrative overhead costs. I do not know, I'm not a specialist on how you could use that technology in harbors, but it's not that difficult to imagine how you can enhance logistical efficiency using blockchain. So a lot of enthusiasm in the room next to this one.
Maybe it's a blockchain seminar.
Oh, I think somebody lost his job or realized that blockchain will obliterate this job.
Well, thank you very much. I think you've heard from the experts. You need not only a bold vision, but a lot of courage. I think if you listen to all the interventions underpinning that, is a lot of courage on the part of leaders like yourself, pushing for bold vision, at the same time bringing together all the stakeholders, looking at what opportunities technology offers, opening yourself up as a test bed for opportunities, right? And of course, at the end of the day, finding the resources to put all this to good effect. But the other point is that if you don't do all this, you'll be left behind in the competition. You can see that every city wants to be a smart city. Every city wants to be a port city now. If you look around the world map, in my own travels, I've not seen any port that's not putting in more money to make their ports smarter and more intelligent. Also being able to handle all these large mega vessels and part of the mega alliances. So I think it's going to be more exciting, more challenging, but I think, as they say, in every crisis there's an opportunity. Here is where coming together at the World City Summit, having the opportunity to network and having the opportunity to see what's being done in other places and being able to see that it can actually be achieved is one of the benefits that we can have, and I'm hoping that as you continue the rest of the sessions here, you'll learn more about, besides ports, airports, and transportation. I think the needs of cities are enormous, particularly where you see cities heading towards now. I think we're not even at the tip of an iceberg as yet, but I think Asia, amongst many regions in the world, will see a rapidly urbanizing population. And with that, let me end this session and thank our speakers in a traditional way. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing your insights and experiences with us. For this next segment on the joint CLC MPA book launch, Port and the City, Balancing Growth and Livability, we would like to invite Mr. Khoo on stage to present it together with Mr. Andrew Tan. Yeah.
All together.
And Mr. Khoo would now present the gifts of appreciation to the panelists.
Yes, yes. Studied the history at King's College now. European history.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our forum, and we thank you for your participation.